They are global travelers, they're digital global marketers, and they're members of the world-renowned rock band, the Asian Council. They're my friends, Adam Chang and Cecil Apostol. How you doing, guys?
Good.
Great. Excited to be here.
All right, thank you for joining. And as I told you, this is We Are Boss People, platform that celebrates the new success being authentic and unapologetic about who you are. Why don't we first start off with a question of what defines success to you, or what does success mean to you? And how has that definition changed since you first started out in your career? What do you think, Cecil?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, success as it relates to my career, I would say is not career related. I think success means that I'm able to separate my work life from my personal life. Not to have to bring my work computer with me on weekends and obviously living at a different time and my work is with me all the time, but actually being able to close it and, focus on myself, that's a success because one, found a job where they're not working you to the bone. Two, they trust you to do your job like in a set amount of time and not have to do it after hours. And three, they value, that work-life balance so that you are able to, be a well-rounded individual and not just make your life entirely. So, that's success to me. It doesn't really matter like how much you get paid or if you work for like a brown company. Like it is about like kind of personal happiness in a way. And in that way, it's a little bit weird because that's outside of like the responsibility of your job, your company, and your manager. But if you find good managers and good company, then those are the places to be.
Thank you. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, and I feel like success is it's a broad term. I agree with Cecil in terms of like outside of the career. Like success to me does mean work-life balance. It does mean having the time to spend with my loved ones, my friends, having the time to do the things that I enjoy, and doing the things that I want to learn for myself outside of work. But from a work perspective, though, success can mean a lot of things. I mean, I agree it's not always about money, but early on in this industry, like it is a challenge, like from marketing and advertising perspective. And so like you do want to kind of rise up kind of quickly. That's everyone's kind of goal. But you do get work to the bone in some cases, but I don't regret anything in terms of like my career at all. And I think everything that I've done has led up to the successes that I've had, which is getting to the point of where I do have like a really good work-life balance right now. And I do appreciate that. I don't take anything for granted.
Now, we all three of us used to work at the same media advertising agency. And I remember, seeing you guys really grind it and stay late at the desk. You mentioned work-life balance. Is that something that at some point you felt was imbalanced? Like, something happen where you realize this is just a little too far, where I'm working too many hours and I need to pull back, or I need a different situation? Did something happen where you realized you needed to adjust, how much energy you were investing into your careers? What do you think, Cecil?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that hit me in 2011. So it was 3 years of working at MediaVest. Spent most of that time on Walmart with you guys. And at that point, I'd switched over to Wendy's. And even then, I think I was at my burnout stage. And that's pretty typical that you would see like a entry-level agency role, like, they'll grind people out for 1 or 2 years and then people will bounce and either move on to another agency to get a little bit of a pay bump or just leave advertising altogether. For me, it was just like a mix of a lot of different things, like the lack of work-life balance, the stress, the long hours, the not being, and again, like you start off like not getting paid a lot and you're like, working 10x what you should actually be given like what you're actually making. And I also like needed a change of scenery too. So like I knew that I wanted to, like I'd always been in the tri-state area like my entire life up until that point. So it kind of like was just, right time, the right situation to sort of like take a step back and be like, like right now, what I need in my life as a 25-year-old is to be in California and to not be working at an agency anymore. So I took that plunge, applied to a bunch of jobs in California, applied to Google, just like not thinking I'd get a call back from them. Did, and then went through that process and then ended the role and moved out to San Francisco and have been with them ever since. So that was it for me, 2011.
Just curious, was that after 9/11? Did 9/11 sort of impact your decision making at all, or how you evaluated your life?
I don't know. Like, I think, there's always, there's this, I know I moved back to New York. I'm in New York right now. Like, this is always home to me. And so like, there was always like knowledge that I'd always have a place to come back to. But like, there's also like, having grown up, gone to high school here, like gone to college in Connecticut, like there's also stuff that I'm like, yeah, I'm like kind of done with New York and like want to separate myself from that because it's just been so embedded in my identity. Like, what am I outside of New York? I mean, you mentioned like 9/11, like, yeah, like I went to high school in Jersey City and like we could see the Twin Towers like right from the window of our classroom. Like, that's just how crazy that was. And so yeah, there's like a lot of like history, trauma, and memories that are like within, like I said, the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut for me. So it is kind of refreshing to kind of like separate yourself from that a little bit and then come back to it with a larger sense of appreciation.
And now, Adam, I think you've spent most of your career working in New York City. Is that correct?
Yeah. Pretty much outside of Ohio, New York, which is where I grew up. New York is where I've lived the longest, over 10 years now at this point. So, and that, yeah, exactly. That's where I started my career at MediaVest with all of you guys.
So how have you managed to stay in New York this time and sort of renew or refresh yourself without sort of, getting outside of the tri-state area like Cecil decided to do?
Well, I've always loved New York. I okay, I shouldn't say always. Since like end of high school, college, I've always kind of wanted to come out to New York. I had family here. My cousins were here for a long time. They went to school here or they worked here. And so it's always some place that I wanted to go. And there was some sort of, I don't know why, familiarity to it, even though I grew up in an area that was nothing like New York City. But in terms of like my time here, like I've gotten to live in Manhattan, I've gotten to live in Queens, and now I'm in Brooklyn. And so like there's always something new to experience. And so nothing really ever gets stale. I mean, besides like train delays and tourists and stuff like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, like it's still New York City. Like there's so many things to do.
I'm curious, Adam, like, do you feel like the summer that we spent together for MAIP, like living in the city and like just being a bunch of kids right out of college, like working in New York at agencies and like spending our nights and weekends together, that sort of influenced or did you already have like this notion of New York even before that summer of MAIP?
I did have a notion of New York, but I would say like that solidified it, like that experience at MAIP of just like actually living in the city on my own, well, sort of working.
Shout out iHouse.
Yeah, for sure. Like that experience, it was like amazing. Like that was definitely one of the like ceiling points of me. Like I'm like I have to live here.
So MAIP is the multicultural advertising internship program, and you were both there. You met in 2008, correct?
Yep.
Yep.
So for any MAPers who are going through the program just now, why don't you describe what you're currently doing and how you describe what you're currently doing to your family so they can understand it? Go ahead, Cecil.
Oh, me again? Damn. So I'm currently at Google. I spent actually pretty much most of my Google career on the ad sales side. So primarily for search ads, a little bit of display and video with YouTube, and mainly focused on our larger B2B advertisers. The way I would describe it to my mom was, okay, like when you search on Google for shoes, you'll see ads on the top and then like regular links on the bottom. Like my team is responsible for those ads, as well as those like very annoying, like skippable ads that you see on YouTube as well. But I recently moved on to the marketing side at the end of last year. So I'm now a product marketing manager on the marketing operations team. And our job is really to manage a lot of the relationships that Google has with our creative agency partners, of which we have many creative agency partners because we don't have an agency of record. So we help them, we help our marketers find the right agencies to work with. We help if we need to mediate in terms of like a bad relationship, or we play matchmaker if we need a new relationship for our marketers. And yeah, we just want to make sure that we're best creative talent possible when it comes to telling Google's message out there to the world.
Out of curiosity, were you involved at all in the Google Black History Month ad that ran this past February that everyone loved?
I was not personally, because I also, like I said, if that was a campaign, obviously that just launched in February, probably was in the works from like mid 2019. So I just joined at the end of 2019. But yeah, the folks who did that are obviously great. And that's like a big part of like Google's marketing mission, is making sure that our messaging is applicable to a diverse audience, because the whole is diverse. So that should be reflected in the types of messaging that we're putting out there. So celebrating stuff like Black History Month, or for this month, Asian Pacific American Islander Heritage Month, we really want to make sure that we're appealing to all users, and not just, the ones that you would see in a show like Silicon Valley.
How about you, Adam? What do you do, and what do you tell your family you do?
Ooh. I'm still working on telling my family what I did at MediaVest. Honestly, I have no idea. What I do now is I'm currently at IBM, and I'm on the corporate headquarters side. So focused on paid media strategy. It was kind of what, we don't really have titles, but I'm a paid media specialist, I would say. I came in as a professional hire, an SME, subject matter expert on paid media. And so my role has shifted over the last 3 years or so. I originally came in to kind of help function, or I function more like an internal consultant. So within our performance marketing organization, you have IBM, and then you have all the ads you see on like the US Open and all the TV spots. That's our brand team. And so they focus more on awareness, et cetera. Then there's a performance marketing side of the house where we're actually targeting specific C-suites or like IT infrastructure managers, that kind of stuff, with specific product offerings. So like IBM security, systems, hardware, stuff like that. We help those teams with their paid media strategy and thought leadership. So our team that we have at IBM that I sit with, we're mostly all ex-agency people. So we're media planners, media buyers, media operations people. And we kind of work with the different business groups within IBM to help with their strategy and on paid media. And so my current role now is I'm the global process owner for paid media. So things like media operations. So from planning all the way up until through billing and reconciliation, I own that process for IBM. And so I get to work with the agency hand in hand. Now I'm on the client side working with them. I don't, approve their plans, but I tell them like, these are the processes that we are thinking about changing. How do we do it together?
And what do you tell your family?
I work at IBM, and they go, "Oh, IBM, I know that company."
Easy enough.
Yeah.
So a question about MAIP. What for you was the most valuable part of that experience? I mean, I imagine it must be the relationship, since you two met and you still know each other. Do you think that's the most useful part of it, or are there actually things that you learned there that you still take with you in your careers?
I mean, yeah, it's definitely number one, the people. Adam and I are obviously like still super close friends. I even like officiated a wedding of like other MAIP alums that were in our class. So like, the kinship runs deep for sure. But outside of that, I do feel like there were some interesting, I came in as an English major, having never studied anything advertising or marketing related. And I just saw this as an opportunity to like see what this industry was about and decide if I wanted to stay in it or not. What I found was like, yeah, I did really enjoy like being surrounded by really awesome, smart, creative people, and really seeing all the different teams and people that come together to actually make, you know, an ad campaign go live. It isn't as easy as just like you have an idea and you record it. Like there's so much involved on the media side, on the creative side, on the planning side, the production side. And that's all stuff that like I learned, at least got exposure to through the MAIP internship. So without that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah, I would second that. I really don't think like my career would be where it's at without MAIP. I don't even know if I would be in New York or doing what I'm doing now. I don't know if I can envision another path getting to where I am if I didn't have MAIP. It really like opened a door for me and a lot of people. And you know, for me, the unlike Cecil and some of the other folks in the class, they had already graduated. I still had a quarter left of school because I just made some stupid decisions and changing majors late. But you know, it was also the height of the recession. So by the time I graduated, people were getting laid off. It was really hard to find a job. End of 2008, beginning of 2009. I took some time off, went to Korea, came back, and honestly, without MAIP, I wouldn't even had this MediaVest job because Cecil's the one that told me about the position that was available. And I ended up taking the spot of someone who's also a friend of ours. He didn't do MAIP, but he was, but he's also a good friend. But you know, without MAIP, like I really wouldn't have been able to make those connections to even get me to MediaVest in the first place. It's for me, it's like the lines are clear; they're not dotted lines. It was like a direct path.
And then you both started on the agency side. As you talked about, Cecil, you know, agency life can be a grind for some. The agency world has said across the landscape, you know, that they could do a better job of attracting talent. But you've both had great careers starting off on the agency side. So from your perspective, what is the benefit of starting your career with one of the large media or advertising agencies?
Yeah, I mean, like you really cut your teeth like learning so much, especially at a larger agency where you're working on clients that have very complex structures and teams and stakeholders that you need to manage. So, you know, for me, I think that kind of exposure was really good because you know, it's going to be a matter of personal preference, but I do feel like I thrive more in like larger companies just because, it's nice knowing that you kind of have access to all these different resources to be able to do your job well. You know, not to say that smaller shops don't, but like it is tough and you have to wear a lot of different hats versus like, you know, when you're at a larger company, you know exactly what you're responsible for. And like, if you're an expert in this, like that's what you're going to do. And you're not expected to sort of like jump into something that you might not be comfortable with or like be an expert in. So, you know, I really learned a lot about just like corporate structures that was really helpful when I moved over to the sales side. Just seeing like, okay, who are the key decision makers that you need to reach? Like, is this really important? Like maybe, maybe not. And so just kind of like managing those kinds of things as well was really great. And to be able to learn, again, it was such a grind. But it was something that you also like, you know, you just kind of go through that and then you have your buddies who also went through that at the same time and you can, you know, sort of like reminisce together like years after. But it was an important sort of like very formulative time, I think, for my career.
Yeah, I mean, the agency side, I learned a ton. Like that's where, like that, yeah, that's kind of where you earn your stripes, in my opinion. Like you know, it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, these kids aren't, like taking the time to, you know, kind of go through the ringer and all that stuff. It's like, no, I don't have that kind of view, but I do feel that that's where I learned, you know, how to do my job, how like even the job that I'm doing now, it's all rooted in the things that I was doing on the agency side. I wouldn't be a process owner for paid media if I didn't know how the paid media process worked. And it's not just a single agency's process. It's just there are certain processes that are universal, like media planning is at the end of the day media planning. And you know, the things that I learned at the agency side, so you know, digital media, digital planning, strategy, and buying, those are all things that have carried over to every single job I've had. So even the second job I had after MediaVest was another agency that helped. I learned a different skill there, which was, global governance. That is not something I learned at my first job. And then that also helps with my current job. So I think the benefit to, like, starting on the agency side, and I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, but like a lot of, on the client side, a lot of companies who do hire or are looking for like media specialists, like they're looking for people that have agency experience, because the thing that I learned when I went to IBM is that there are certain things that we had that are standard on the agency side, like things like media tools, like planning tools, that just didn't exist. Some of these processes just didn't exist. And it's like, how do you guys even, what if you got audited? Like, what would happen to all these things? And so it's that kind of knowledge and that kind of experience is super valuable for an advertiser on their side. So like, that's why my team is made up mostly of ex-agency people. Like they value that experience. And so, yeah, I definitely think that agencies, there's benefits to learning on the agency side for sure.
And you've both described your careers, which I would call unqualified successes, being both at, everything that you've done, being at Google and IBM. But a lot of people may not know about some of the, if you want to call them, failures or setbacks or things you wish you could maybe get back or maybe not get back or learn from. But you often don't hear about these things, on LinkedIn or when someone looks at your job title. Would you mind sharing, something that you realized, might have been a mistake or could be viewed as at the time as a failure, but was a useful experience for you?
Can you make Adam go first? Because I don't know what I want to
Go ahead,
Adam.
Yeah, I have one. I stayed at a job too long that I hated. And you'd think that it was the MediaVest. It's not. That was the job I've been at the longest. I was 6 years at MediaVest, right? But it was the job after that. I think it was just a weird, interesting time in my life. Everyone will go through it at some point in some way, shape, or form, right? But like that, it wasn't the best environment for me. Whether it was the hours or the demands from either the client or even just my bosses, there wasn't maybe a cultural fit. I loved my team regardless, but at the end of the day, like it wasn't a good fit, and I didn't realize that until it was too late. And so I don't regret anything, but if there was one like setback that I had, it's just like I didn't leave soon enough. I left too late. The damage was already done. I'm happy now, but I could have avoided a lot of that if I just recognized that, like, no, I don't have to go through this, because at some points, in terms of being at an agency, it's like you just think that's just like the agency life is like a roller coaster. It's up and down, up and down. I just thought it was one of those downs, but just kept going. So I was like, okay, time to get off this ride.
I would say, what did you think the signs were that it was time to leave that you didn't pay attention to at the time?
Mostly my mental health. And so things like I was just not happy. Like, I don't know, do you remember those episodes of Seinfeld where George, when he's like sad, he'll go to the pier and just sit at the pier on that bench? I literally did that at South Street Seaport. I was invited to answer this straight after our office was. So I did that on like the dead heat of summer. Like I'll be in my Oxford, long pants. I would just go out and sit at the pier, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? Why am I spending 12 hours of my day doing this? But like, not to be melodramatic, but like that was a wake up call for me. It's like, okay, I should focus on myself a little bit and find something that fits my life better.
Cecil, you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah, so I would say one mistake that I'll share is early on in my career at Google on the sales side, again, didn't really have, like, I had the ads background, but didn't really have the ad sales background, or specifically like with digital and specifically search. So there was all these tools and things that I needed to learn and ramp up on. But I remember making a mistake that actually kind of wiped out a lot of account history for one of my clients. And didn't, like, there was a process that you had to follow and make sure that you're backing up if you're making any changes. And I didn't. And I freaked out and, didn't know how or like what I should be doing. And and eventually came clean to my manager, but obviously was just very hesitant to do so because obviously, you know, you're new at a job, you're at this like high performing company like Google, you don't want to show a weakness or that like, you know, you've done something wrong. But my manager was super gracious about it and was just like, yeah, like, you know, this happens, like these mistakes happen, and, you know, we'll figure out something to communicate to the client. And he, you know, was willing to actually take the communication direct to the client to like provide, so I wasn't putting myself on the line as this like newbie who had like totally messed this thing up. And to me, like that, I guess the big takeaway is that, you know, when you find a manager who's really willing to have your back no matter what, even if it's your mistake, like they're willing to own it, like that's a great manager. That's someone that you would respect and work for. And, you know, he was my manager for literally 8 years. And that's why I stayed on that team for so long. So like, I would say another takeaway is that like, yeah, also like the mistakes that you make, especially early on in your career, like they'll happen, but don't beat yourself. I also don't even remember what client this was that I like completely ruined this account history for. So like in the moment, it's going to feel really bad, but in the long run, it's not that big a deal. Like we're not saving people's lives, but we are helping people and helping businesses grow. But, you know, it's not going to be the end of the world.
Great stories, both of you. Want to take you back to the summer of '08, the summer of your MAIP internship, and get your opinion on a burning question.
Young.
Which was the best movie from the summer of '08? Was it the original Iron Man, WALL-E, or what was it? Iron Man, WALL-E, or The Dark Knight? Cecil, WALL-E, Iron Man, Dark Knight, go.
Oh, that is tough. Can I rank them?
You can rank them.
All right, Dark Knight number 1 for sure. Seeing that like in IMAX, like at Lincoln Center, was just like no other experience in 2008. WALL-E because I love Pixar, and that was just such a touching movie. And Iron Man was good, but like does not compare to those other two. So that's my answer.
All right, Adam.
I'm not gonna rank them. It was The Dark Knight. It was pure chaos in New York City when that movie came out. I remember we as a group during MAIP went to go see it at Regal at Times Square, and the line was so long because none of us expected that because none of us were from New York City besides Cecil. And I remember distinctly we were going in line, and this Good Samaritan, this random dude was like, "You guys can go in front of us. I've seen this movie 3 times. Hands down, Dark Knight."
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with WALL-E because
memories.
WALL-E actually was it was prophecy. The more times I see people vaping and sitting with like giant slushies on, you know, look just like WALL-E to me. I don't know. Okay, last question for both of you. Burning question now with the debate going on. I'm gonna start with you, Adam. Jordan or LeBron?
Oh, don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. Well, I'm from Cleveland. I'm gonna go with LeBron. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that, but I love LeBron.
Cecil, you're on the West Coast. Do you want to throw in Durant or Curry in there instead?
No, I mean, okay. Granted, I became a bandwagon Warriors fan when I was living in the Bay because that was the epitome of like great basketball to watch at the time. But growing up in the 90s, total Jordan fan, like had his jersey, had all the basketball cards, all about it, all time. LeBron is awesome, but does not compare to Jordan. Jordan all the way.
There you have it. Thank you both for your time. I really appreciate it. And it's great to see you and looking forward to what the next 10 years of your career holds. Thank you both.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.